And they just, the coalition just won an award, their Local Champions Award. And then we finally produced our very first saleable document, and that is the Kitsap County Water Trail Map. NKTA, the Olympic Outdoor Center, and John Kuntz and the Kitsap VCB all came together to do something that should have been done 50 years ago, which was map out all the places you can launch a kayak in Kitsap County. Okay? Because we have an amazing array of facilities, but they've never been organized and mapped, so somebody from somewhere else has no idea. And now, if you look at the map, you can see all these places, and now anybody can know where you can put it in and what a great place Kitsap County is. Those guys did a great job with that. There's been some monetary successes. The Kitsap Forest and Bay Coalition and Kitsap County were successful in getting a $270,000 grant that helps plan all these trails and all this open space, because these are organizations that actually have to pay people, and they can't just fund this betting on the come. And so that was a really important part to allow them to keep doing the work that they're doing. And then the Sklallam tribes, and there are three. There's the local Port Gamble Sklalams, the Jamestown, and the Elwha. We're all in negotiations with the Navy for mitigation on that brand new $700 million wharf in Hood Canal. And they were successful, and the Navy was successful in allocating resources for the purchase of waterfront properties in Gamble Bay. That was the first success this thing has had in really having money identified for it, but it only applies to waterfront lands south of the mill site. But it's a great start. The Department of Ecology was successful in getting $7 million for waterfront land acquisition at the close of legislature. We all owe them a big thanks for that. There is a caveat with the $7 million. A, it can only be used on waterfront. And B, us and DOE and DNR have to come to an agreement on the cleanup. And if that was, that's the reward for everybody if we can get an agreement on the cleanup. And that money was really there to help preserve the cleanup. So DOE wanted to limit the amount of development that would happen in Gamble Bay so that the cleanup doesn't go backwards after you make all this progress. Right, DOE guys? Okay. There was another $5 to $7 million of potential funding associated with that Navy project. The Hood Canal Coordinating Council and Richard Brocksmith has been working for over a year to get a program established where when the Navy builds a project, instead of just buying little projects, they turn over the money to the Hood Canal Coordinating Council and they go buy conservation land. So there may be another $5 to $7 million available, but again, that's just going to be for waterfront. Okay, that was a meeting that looks a lot like this meeting. That was 2007. I'm not going to go into great detail, but that's the org chart for the Kitsap Forest and Bay project. The principals are the two tribes, the county, Pope Resources, and then the Kitsap Forest and Bay Coalition, represented by Sandra Staples-Bortner from Great Peninsula Conservancy. Next. String of Pearls Trail Plan. Oh yeah, baby. Next. That's the water trail map. Now, why did that take 30 years to do? But isn't it great that we have that? Unbelievable. Okay, this money that's been allocated has triggered the need for appraisals. So there are appraisals going on right now. And that is a tough job. The mill site's a really complicated one to appraise. Those 20-acre lots that are along the bay, they are very challenging to appraise. Those portions of the appraisals will be completed this year. And everybody's going to be pins and needles waiting for the answer. Because this isn't the best time in the economy, and the appraiser's a great appraiser, but you just never know if everybody's going to get together and come together on what the value should be. So a great story is unfolding, but I do not know what's in the last chapter. So the conclusion is there is going to be enough funding to take care of the 20-acre lots and the 2 miles of shoreline. It might not happen all at once, but there will be enough funding for that. The other reality, though, which is challenging, is 90% of the land does not qualify for traditional government grant programs because it doesn't have a swamp, a wetland, a riparian zone, a river, a stream, or a coastal waterfront. And most of the grant programs are designed for that. So we need to come up with an alternative game plan that does not rely just on money. And we're not going to go back to that old plan with the 800 units, but there's lots of other ideas that have been floated out there. We have 9 months to get it done. And that's really where the crux and the challenge has always been, is for lands that are just regular old timberland. And unfortunately, that's most of it. So if somebody has ideas out there, do not hold them back. Get them to us or the Kitsap Forest and Bay Project. You know, the bottom line is we are looking for solutions that put as many acres as possible into conservation and keep as many acres open to the public as possible. Okay, and it's, you know, by next year it's going to be 6 years, and this company has to get on with life. And volunteers get volunteer fatigue. You can't keep volunteering forever. So if a plan, this is what I would ask. If you have an idea, get it to somebody. If an idea comes out, it will not be a perfect idea. If this group gets together and brings an alternative plan out, look at the big picture and please look at what you like and not pick apart the tiny little things you don't like that aren't perfect, because this is hard. It is hard to get land that the public can't afford into the public's hands, so there's going to have to be some creativity. And then we're going to need your support. That's the point of tonight, and that was the point of the first meeting, is we are not going to get anywhere if you guys are not rallying behind whatever plan comes your way. You have to be there. Lastly, the environmental cleanup. We entered the program in a voluntary program in 2002 with our predecessor company, Pope and Talbot. While there's cameras here, we are not Pope and Talbot. But man, do people like to call us that. It's just a force of habit. We spun out of Pope and Talbot in 1985. A lot of work has been done. Both of the companies went to work in 2002 to clean up the 150 years of stuff. So there's landfills, there's tanks, there's 30,000 yards of dirt came off the mill site. Okay, 30,000 yards of dredge came out of the bay. Okay, and now we're narrowing in on the very last bit of the cleanup. Port Gamble, there's a lot of it. It is the most studied bay. It has been sampled from the south to the north. And the water quality, which is monitored regular, is excellent. Okay, the sediment, does it show evidence of 150 years of industry? It really does. But it's also has some of the lowest hazards of any sediments of any bay. We've taken out in the last 10 years 30,000 cubic yards of the worst contaminated sediments up near the mill site. And there are signs of natural recovery taking place because we aren't log rafting anymore, and we aren't cutting chips anymore. However, the bay has definitely been impacted by 150 years of use. And the issues are wood from the sawmill and from log rafting. When that wood settles to the bottom, it causes impacts. And there's evidence of pollution from the many, many, many creosote pilings. Okay, so there are many, many, but is it unusual in Puget Sound? No, it's not, but does it need to be addressed? Yes, it does. So again, the state has found funding for preservation enhancement of the cleanup, but that isn't necessarily the cleanup itself. How does it work and who pays? That is always the interesting and really cool part. It's like going to NASCAR and waiting for the crash. That's really what you're there for. But the way it works is under the law, different parties are identified that are potentially liable parties. Pope Resources is absolutely one of those. The Department of Natural Resources that owns those submerged beds where all the pilings are and where the log rafting took place. is a potentially liable party. Pope and Talbot, because they had the sawmill that produced, actually had the biggest chunk of liability under the law, and they inconveniently went bankrupt down in Portland in 2007. And that was a bad time for the rest of us, because now the state looks at the other two PLPs and says, oh, too bad, so sad. So we got a it's very challenging to figure all that stuff out, and there's some big numbers, and that's part of our drama this summer. However, we're optimistic. The next steps is to agree on a final cleanup plan and who's paying for what. We got to split costs, and we're hoping the final resolution to that will be this summer. Wrapping up, what we're talking about tonight is we are writing the future, the next 100 years for North Kitsap. This is 11 square miles that we're talking about tonight, a national treasure and the health of a beautiful bay. This is making history right now. And what are the benefits? Is this just a benefit for Pope? I hope that you think it's not just that. I hope people have gotten a benefit from Port Gamble just the way it is, and will get it more benefit in the future. I think this project's putting Kitsap on the map. I do, in a good way, in a really good way. This project has brought people together that have never worked together before, a huge group of them. That's the first time ever in my experience in Kitsap, that much cooperation. We're going to make a beautiful town more beautiful. We're going to make it more productive. We're going to bring it back into the economy. That mill site's going to be put back to work. The project's going to attract companies, tourism, and it's going to attract our kids to come back to Kitsap County. Did you know we're aging at twice the rate of the country? We are the demographic over 55, twice the national rate. Kids grow up and they don't come back. And I think it preserves and enhances our way of life here in Kitsap. We have a chance to save 11 square miles and to save a small town, and literally we cannot do it. Pope can't do it on its own. And we all share that responsibility. We do. We all do. So before we wrap up, I want you to see that list, and Pope Resources wants to put out its own hearty thank you to the NKTA, to the Kitsap Forest and Bay folks, to Rob Gelder and Kitsap County, to our legislators, to the 2 tribes that have worked on this, and to all you volunteers that have been there. For all you folks that are loving those trails but haven't gotten involved, get that name on a list tonight and be part of this and help people out. People have spent thousands of hours on all of our behalf. And with that, if you want to find out more, it's yourbackyard.com. And I thank you very, very much for coming tonight and supporting this effort.